What is up, Internet? This is a weird one. You get to look at my face. I am so sorry. This is Chad, and I am with Brett. And this is, I guess, a video teaser. When we're in our house, and Brett's got a hat on, so I had to put a hat on because I wanted to be as good looking as you. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. I mean, you just said sorry to our followers or whatnot for your face, but I don't mind looking at you, and I know that our followers don't mind looking at me. So we're off to a good start.
You know for a fact that the followers like that, like they've gotten at you directly, and
No, you know what, man? Like we were saying, you're good with music, and Andy's a mouthpiece, and so I might as well be the
you're
guy.
the eye candy.
I'm the eye candy. And I mean, it doesn't help, or it certainly helps that I'm a few years younger than both of you. So
Significant years younger, yes. You referred to the fact that we are now one episode longer than you've been alive, I think, or something. You were pointing out that we hit episode 40 as a podcast, and that's a few, just a few years, 5 years, 5 years.
yeah, it's 5 years, and I mean, I'm glad you caught yourself there. You were aging me a little bit, and I already feel about 40, but it's 36 this summer, and the white hair is coming in places that can't be hidden so well. So
That's awesome. Only one of us is 39 now, and it's the one who is conspicuous by his absence. This is a weird one. I think the only one that the three of us, the only one of these video teasers that all three of us have been on has been the first. And then I missed the next two, and now it's just you and I tonight. So we're sorry that the internet doesn't get to look at the glorious face of Andrew Paul Moore tonight.
well, I mean, it's a weird time, right? We're all doing this quarantine or social distancing thing, and I mean, I've been home for almost 9 weeks now, not doing much because took a leave of absence from work, and yeah, you're doing your best to try and do some e-learning or not e.
Yes. Yeah, remote distance learning, whatever. It's
Yeah,
interesting, and it's interesting too, to make the distinguishment there between e-learning and what's happening now. What's happening now, with all due respect to everybody in the education field and to all the parents that are educating at home, what's happening now is not e-learning. E-learning is meticulously planned, and I'm not saying that we're not planning what's happening. I'm saying this is very much a stopgap response, right? It's an emergency response to really an emergency that's worldwide. And so, yeah, distance learning, I suppose, is a better term than e-learning. Who knows?
the good news is that you're doing a hell of a job going by the seat of your pants. So I mean, if there was or if you're experiencing anything that makes you feel uncomfortable with this whole uh, distance learning thing, you haven't been showing it.
Well, it's easy to hide it from the other side of the computer, from across the internet. There's less transparency than even what we're doing now, where it's face to face. But thank you, man. It's been very difficult being a music educator in this world, just because it doesn't really lend itself too well to some of the things that I do as an instrumental music teacher. A lot of my students have instruments back at the school and no access to them, and so yeah, very much trying to come up with ways to engage them and justify some of the material. And unfortunately, sometimes when you take the instruments away, what's left is the boring stuff, right? The music theory and the content that still has to get taught. So super proud of my students and the way that everybody's been responding and handling this situation, for sure.
Well, I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but I mean, I think that technology and the way we do things in the world is finally starting to catch up to
Yeah.
how things should have been going 5 or 10 years ago. Anyway, in my opinion, maybe just after you and I graduated high school was when things probably should have started to at least consider what distance learning or e-learning it looks like. I don't necessarily agree with e-learning, but I mean, if they were going to implement something, they could have done it in stages or tried something, and trial and error. And trial and error is something that I think you and I are quite used to. growing up with disabilities, there was a lot of trial and error that our parents had to do. And then as you and I were trying to navigate the school system, the ski hill, the hockey rink, trial and error.
Yeah, Andy said it in last week's recording, the one that we just posted. You know, the word is adaptability, and trial and error is a great word for it. A lot of times, you know, guys like myself and you, through our school experiences, and you really are, you know, flying by the seat of your pants and kind of making things up as you go along, and learning how to do things and learning how to navigate the crazy ride. And so I think that's happening around the world right now. Everybody is adapting to the best of their ability, and wherever you are right now, whatever you're going through, I know that you're not alone, and we're all in this together, and it'll be over soon, or soon enough. I can't even say soon, because who knows. But again, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and without sounding like Batman, the night is always darkest just before the dawn, or something like that.
And I think you hit it right on the head. It will be over at some point. And the one constant that you and I and Andy are going to keep reiterating is that we're here for you. If you guys are watching this or listening to one of our podcasts, and you feel the need to reach out because you're just not having a good moment in your life, please go ahead and hit us up on Facebook, or I've got an Instagram account. I've also got a Twitter account, and I also have another podcast that I do with AMI Audio called The Neutral Zone, and we talk about parasports and mainstream sports. And you know, I've said that I haven't been very busy the last 9 weeks, and that's a blatant lie. I've been pretty busy trying to sort out some stuff in my life. I'm planning on moving up to a cottage here, at least off and on for the time being, in the next couple of weeks. So our spring is going to go pretty quickly. Our summer is going to go even quicker, and hopefully by September, things are going to get back to what I like to consider the new normal.
That's awesome. That is a word and a phrase that's been thrown around quite a bit these days, the new normal, as we really are adapting so much to what has become normal. In a shout out to trying to keep things as traditional and normal as possible. Even our hats are enemies tonight, Brett. I've got, I put the cap on just because I saw you had the backwards cap, but I'm now looking at you close enough to realize that it is a Maple Leaf cap, and mine's backwards, but of course it's a Habs cap. I'll move out of the way there so the internet can see where my allegiance lies, although clearly I think that's a very well-known fact about me. You're not French-Canadian by last name and cheer for any other team than Le Bleu Blanc et Rouge. So, you know, it's interesting, and I know you're a sports guy, and our podcast tends to be a lot more about the disability world and things like that. But I wonder how you are feeling as an avid sports fan to things starting to get back to normal, in the sense that now you have things on TV. I know the UFC is back. Baseball is looking at coming back very soon, potentially. Even hockey, and that's a whole other one. That's the only sport I watch is hockey. This whole 24-team playoff thing. There goes my daughter. Wave to the internet. This whole 24-team sports thing. There she is. She's waving. Is bananas. But anyways, give us your take on what sports is looking like in the coronavirus world.
So in the last 9 days, we've had 3 UFC cards and we've had a NASCAR race. And you bet your ass that I've watched 3 UFC cards and a NASCAR race. And I don't even like NASCAR. Who the hell watches a car turn left for 3 hours? It's exciting. It's really, really weird not having any fans in the stands. I can only imagine what the athletes, because I'm not sure a NASCAR guy is an athlete, feels. But I'm excited for baseball. I'm excited for hockey if and or when it happens. I keep hearing a rumor that the CFL, boo CFL for Andy, is going to be starting maybe July 15th, which is really, really soon if you think about it. And then we've been told that the NFL is definitely starting up. And you can't forget that there's soccer going on over in Europe right now. They started up again too. So I mean, again, we've talked about it. This is a new normal, at least for the time being, and things are slowly getting back to normal, I guess. I won't be back to work for a bit. I can tell you that. But you know what? I really don't care. I'm going to go out and enjoy the nice weather when it comes in the next little while. Have a, couple of wobbly pops. My dad would be real proud, and I'm going to participate in the good old game of fishing all summer, and I know my mom's pretty excited about that. She taught me everything I know when it comes to fishing, so we're excited, and I think our listeners who love sports should be excited that things are slowly ramping back up.
Most definitely. I am 100% with you with the 3 UFC fights. Watched all of those, and I've been hit and miss with UFC. I've gone through phases of absolutely loving the sport and then not watching it forever. And then only recently getting back into it since I got some streaming capabilities through my TV and stuff to be able to watch the fights. But yeah, I was super stoked to have that come back and bring some sort of normalcy into life. But yeah, very, very different without a crowd. And you can imagine, again, that that's going to be the new normal moving forward for these sports that are starting up. And 100% with you in the not watching people make left turns. I have never, ever been a racing fan. Let alone a NASCAR fan, as there goes my daughter again. You got to wave again every time you pass by. You can't. There she is. Okay, but don't. Oh, man. All right. Anyways, she's very dramatic. She's the reason for every gray hair that is under this cap. And that's maybe why I'm wearing a cap tonight, because Brett was as well. But yeah, I can't watch NASCAR either. So I didn't watch people make left turns. Matter of fact, I don't even think I knew that it had happened until I saw a thing on Sports Center that it was back. With all due respect to anybody who watches NASCAR, I want to put the sports to bed for a little bit and focus more on the focus of our podcast, which is living with our disabilities or challenges or facing any kinds of challenges in life. You mentioned that you are counting down the days to get to this new cottage, which was purchased by your mom and the family, and so that's could be very well be becoming your summer home. What does it look like for you as a wheelchair user? I know the internet who might know me and not know you. You can't see our chairs off camera here, but we're both chair users. So what does that look like for you? I know what it looks like for me going to my family cottage and some of the accessibility challenges there. My family has essentially helped to, my dad and some of his siblings have helped to level the ground and create a path down to the water for me because our place is right on the water. So I've got essentially a makeshift ramp, which because our place sits on top of a hill. So I know what it looks like for me, but I'm sort of curious because I've never fished with you. I'd love to, buddy, because I love to fish as well. And everything that I know about fishing came from my dad, who just celebrated a birthday. I won't say how many years because he'll be mad at me if I give away his age for the whole internet. But what's it look like for you in terms of accessibility up there, or do you even know what it'll look like? And again, maybe it'll be an adapting situation.
So I know what the property looks like just by pictures and video. I haven't been up there yet, and I don't intend to be up there until everything is sorted out. There have been talk about building some wooden ramps, and there's also been talk about maybe buying or purchasing a used lift. So we'll see what that entails, or if that even goes ahead. I'm not sure what it even looks like trying to get down to the water. I have been told that it's rather flat, so I don't really have a problem with that. But I also was gifted a scooter by my grandmother, who passed away a year ago, January. So we have decided that we're going to take the scooter up to the cottage, and to bomb around the property, I will be using the scooter just to get at least from the cottage to the water.
You're going to be hitting that throttle hard, eh? You're going to be seeing how fast Grandma's scooter goes. Just.
And I've bombed up and down the street in the last 2 months with it. It handles quite well. It will not end up in the lake, I promise.
Can you really? I mean, I don't know how far north your place is. I think you've told me, but I already forget. But I do know, and my family's all my family with my last name anyway is all north. They're all 5 hours ish north, and in Northern Ontario, there's a lot of drinking that goes on, right? So can you really guarantee that scooter doesn't end up in the water? Because I could guarantee that my wheelchair doesn't end up in the water up at camp, but I'm not going to lie to you, that would be a bold-faced lie.
They start drinking heavily about North Bay, right? So
Yeah, yeah. Okay, fair enough.
I'm a little bit south of North Bay, and from what I remember, you're around Sudbury. So I think I'm fairly confident that it's not going to end up in the lake. Um, I mean, accidents do happen, and if we leave it up there and it gets thrown in the lake when we're not there, then that's not my fault. Certainly my responsibility. It won't end up in the lake. I really want to be able to go up there and enjoy myself. So having it go missing, whether it be bottom of the lake or somewhere deep in town, it's not going to happen on my accord.
I guess I was kind of forgetting about the electronics and the problem that would be if the scooter ended up in the lake. I've only ever been a manual wheelchair user, so there have been moments where my chair has ended up in the lake accidentally, and then moments where it hasn't, where myself or my younger cousins have decided to drive my wheelchair off the dock right into the lake because why not? And then all the guys that work on my chair always say, "How did it get so rusted?" I don't know. I have no idea how that happened.
Yeah, salt water is a pain in the ass when it comes to that sort of stuff, and I've had my wheelchairs over the years end up in an ocean or two, but and then you come back and like you said, they work on it and like, what the hell happened to it? Well, I mean, I just came back from Mexico, put two and two together, and figured it out yourself.
Listen, just don't do it. Only happened once, but don't do what I did famously one time with my mom and dad coming back from the cottage. My manual chair had to be taken apart to fit in the vehicle that we were driving back in with all the luggage and everything. And our place is, I think you mentioned it, they're not as far as Sudbury, but past Parry Sound. So about 4 hours north of here in Hamilton, where I am currently recording. We got all the way home from the cottage and realized that the tires for my wheelchair were still at the cottage. So just don't do that.
Funny story. I've actually left my wheelchair in the garage and driven to work and have had to turn around. So I get it, but I mean, 20 minutes as opposed to 4 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you what your commute time to turn around and go back and get it from work was. I can't remember how that one played out. I think what was happening was one of my relatives was coming down the next day. We were able to get a hold of them and say, "Hey, bring bring the tires because they're sitting, wherever on the living room couch or wherever we had forgotten to." Wherever we had forgotten them and forgot to put them in the car. And and it was one of those trips where we drive straight through. My dad was very, and still is, very famous for being able to make long trips without stops. And this 4 hours was nothing for him. So to be able to drive straight through was nothing. And so no stops to look at the inside the car or go to get my chair in the traveling period and say, "Hey, the tires aren't here." It was we got all the way home and went, "Whoops." So have fun and don't forget any necessities. Although if you do, Mississauga to Gravenhurst is probably not that bad, I suppose.
Well, I mean, I'm going to pack the beer. I'm going to pack the fishing equipment, and I think that's it.
What else do you need? What else do you need? Listen, I want to flip the script here a little bit and continue to plug. This is kind of an offshoot of the podcast, and they've been picking up steam as we continue to post these on our Ability Media page, which started out as an Ability Fitness page and has now undergone a bit of a brand change because I know for me to be affiliated with something with the name fitness in it is a bit of a stretch. So Andy has taken the Ability Fitness page and turned it into the Ability Media page where you can now see all these little teasers. But we just published our 40th episode today. It went live on all major podcast platforms. So however you listen to your podcasts, you can find it. And if you don't listen to podcasts, now's a great time to start because we got nothing better to do in these quarantine times. I edited or I listened to this episode before we posted it. I listened to it to make sure it was good to go while cleaning the bathroom today. So, if you need something to do and you're cleaning the house, throw the earpods, all the technology, throw one of these on and listen to podcasts. But we're 40 episodes in. We just recorded one, which I'm very excited about. And it's been a blast having you a part of it. I can't even remember now how many you're not a part of, Brett, because it's for the better part of a year now, at least over a year, uh, as um, um, as I sort of sit back and reflect. Things have really, really picked up steam since we brought in the third member of our tripod, or as Andy doesn't like to call us, the Cripple Threat. I love that name. I think it's fantastic.
I think that if we ever make it, we need to pitch it to Vince.
That's awesome. Andy would, if Andy was with us right now, he'd be like, shut up and stop talking about wrestling. We've got a group chat with the three of us, and you and I often go back and forth about wrestling in that group chat, and it probably drives Andy nuts. Probably as crazy as it drives me when you guys start talking about the NFL, which is, you joked earlier about Andy not wanting to hear about the CFL, but it's my favorite brand of football. And so, to me, with all due respect, when you guys start talking NFL, you lose me at the end.
Well, it's really funny. With this whole social distancing, quarantine, whatever we want to call it, I've decided that I was gonna download Disney Plus, and obviously I had the Netflix, and I have a friend who's graciously allowed me to use his password for WWE Network. Thank you, sir. And so I've watched Last Ride, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And it's too bad that Andy's not here, because I actually found time to finish that up today, and I'm on the episode 2 of the Undertaker documentary, which I absolutely am falling in love with all over again. If I didn't like the guy before, I just think he's the best superstar in the history of the sport. So
I'm with you, man. And again, maybe this was a private chat worthy of Brett and I, because Andy usually edits these videos together, and he might cut this part out altogether. But I watched a part 2 yesterday on the PVR. I think it aired on Sunday, and I sat down to watch it yesterday. And brilliant stuff for me as a 30 year plus wrestling fan, because my earliest memories of watching wrestling were when I was about 4 years old. So I'm over 30, and so for me now, the more glimpses behind the scenes I can get, the more real the performers look. And we are in an age, and you mentioned the network, and kudos to your friend, whoever it is that gave you that password. That's pretty fantastic. But we're in an age where everything is documented, and sort of kayfabe, as they call it, is a blurred line even. And so to see that, the rawness of that documentary is pretty fantastic. There was a moment in part 2 where they asked Vince what the Undertaker means to him and to the WWE, and Vince got so emotional that he made the guys cut the camera, and I was like, wow, heavy stuff.
And it makes you wonder, like, Vince obviously has Shane as a son, but it makes you wonder what sort of relationships Vince has with his guys that have come through the WWE, previous to the WWF, and whether or not Undertaker is obviously his favorite. I think him and we'll call him Mark Calloway is. It's a special bond, and it's so cool to see. And I honestly hope that one day I can have a relationship with my boss like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, the more human you can see it, the more realism it brings to it. And yes, if Andy was here, he'd be pointing out how wrestling is so fake. And I'm very well aware of that. I still find it very entertaining. And again, the more real it can look, the more kind of glimpses you get into these guys' characters. I'm a big fan of Broken Skull sessions with Steve Austin, and having these guys just talking out of character. Really, really cool stuff, and pretty amazing to see. So I'm with you, buddy. That's been pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, and again, it's a week away, but I can't wait for episode 3, and just what the next week or 10 days or 2 weeks is going to look like for sports coming back. It's I don't know how much our viewers or listeners know how badly sports means to me. It's a mental release, and I know we've all had to navigate how to redevelop mental releases in a lot of respects, but not having sports has been pretty damn tough on me from a mental standpoint. So seeing something like that is sports entertainment, not necessarily sports, it's helped lift my spirits.
It's interesting, and again, to flip it back and continue to plug the podcast, because really that's what has helped to bring the two of us closer together as we continue this journey together. But on this week's episode, which we just published today, episode 40, which you could find on all major podcast platforms, we try and talk as openly and honestly, with no excuses, because it's not just a tagline, about how we are managing to stay positive. And it's been even harder than I had imagined. I don't think that anyone saw this coming, at least to this extent. And if you did, you're better than me. But it's been hard. And the longer it goes, really the harder it gets. I had, and I speak a little bit openly about it on this episode of the podcast that we just published, a couple dark moments in the last couple of weeks where I just didn't like myself, man. And I was like, what is this doing to me? And who am I becoming? And I'm not the man, the husband, the father that I want to be in these moments. And we talk about strategies with the three of us that we have used to stay positive. And for you, obviously, sports is a big part of that. For me, it's my music. I find myself consistently trying to find time with my guitar, to do these little live stream concerts, to sing and play for myself as much as possible, because it is that mental release. So whether it's sports, music, reading, whatever you're using, I hope that everybody is staying as positive as possible, because these are crazy times, and the ones that we are locked in rooms with really are that we're in the trenches with. We're in the trenches of life right now, and to be with loved ones, for this long without any kind of release, it can be overwhelming. And I think it's been tougher, as I said, on me than I had imagined. And I said that on this week's episode, I've always tried to be an insanely positive guy. And I found even that moments of that sort of slipping away, and you wake up and realize, wow, yesterday was a bad day. Today I'm going to make it a better one. And so, I think we're doing our best to try and be as real as possible about some of the stuff that we are dealing with. And if people find something in that to grab to, then that's pretty awesome. I know that you have overcome quite a bit in your own life. And so I appreciate having a guy like you and a friend like you on this journey with me. So thanks very much.
Well, and I appreciate that. And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I know that I've probably dealt with quite a bit, but in the grand scheme of things, I've dealt with little compared to so many other people. So, I mean, if this Team Ability No Excuses podcast helps anybody out there, then I mean, I know you and Andy are going to be happy as a pig in shit, but I'm going to be smiling too. I really think that we've got a really good thing going here, and I mean, we're all about love and positivity, and just trying to prove that even though we're three dudes with circumstances that are beyond our control, we don't really make any excuses for it, and we do our damnedest to break down barriers and just to continue to prove people wrong, because that's probably what we have to do daily for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, and and I love that. I love it. I've spent my life proving people wrong, and I will continue to do it. I think it's one of my favorite things to do. You tell me no, and I say watch, right? or you just give me more fire. I don't think, and Andy started this really, and he probably brought me along because I talk the most. So we've been here since episode 1. You joined us shortly after that, and I don't think we ever said to ourselves we want to make a difference or make be an inspiration for people. But we found out in an episode that we've taped, which will probably come out next. So a little bit of teaser as to what's to come, a little bit of perspective. So we had a guest named Brittany Myers join us on the last episode that we taped, which will be coming out shortly. And Brittany spoke to how she used our podcast as a source for a paper in college about disability representation. And then through that episode, and I don't want to give too much away because, of course, I want you to go back and listen to the episode. But through that episode, we discovered that the podcast has become a source of inspiration for her 12-year-old niece who has cerebral palsy. So that was totally surreal for me and a holy cow moment. I'm like, with this little podcast, you know, we might have a niche market or a small group of listeners, but we're doing things that I didn't even think we could do. And so that's pretty cool.
And it's crazy because, I mean, I look at myself in the mirror every day and I'm like, well, who the hell wants to listen or take this guy seriously? And it's really, really cool that people are listening and taking this guy seriously, even if I spout a little bit of nonsense along the way. So it's been fun, and I'm really looking forward to next week because that was a really fun interview.
Yeah, you know, it's been interesting. We said to ourselves from the outset of this coronavirus outbreak pandemic thing, whatever we're calling this beast that we're all in, the three of us said this is going to be a great time for having some guests on. The platform that we use called Zencastr lifted their restrictions on the number of guests you could have. And so in previous episodes, we could only ever have three people on the mic at a time. So it was always me from my place, Andy from his place, and you from yours. And so we've been socially distancing this podcast thing to begin with, as we sort of discovered that it was kind of hard for the three of us to get together. I think we've only, in the time that we've been doing this with you, we've only taped 2 together of the almost 40 where all three of us are in the same room. But it's been pretty crazy. We said to ourselves, let's get some guests on because now we have the opportunity to do that. So we've had quite a few guests. I still have a couple in mind that I would love to get on. I know you feel the same way, Brett, but this was a really cool one. One that we extended the invitation to Britt after reading the paper. So Britt used us as a source in the paper. She flipped it to me. I read the paper, flipped it to you guys, said, read this. And then Andy said, we got to get her on the show. Britt was nice enough to take us up on the invitation. And that was a really cool episode. So if you're a fan of what we've been doing, challenge you to listen to that one because it was eye-opening for us, certainly for me and for Andy, and I know for you, Brett. So hopefully it can be eye-opening for our listeners as well.
And you know what the thing is that I don't really get nervous on a Thursday night if I have to talk to the two of you. I start getting a little bit of butterflies if I hear that we're going to have a guest. And so we've had Dave and AC on, and now we've got Brett here that we're going to be listening to next week. Terrible nerves when I hear that we're going to have a guest. Even if I've sat and I've met them or talked to them for a few minutes, you just we've been raw, we've been real, and when you don't know what your guest is like, even though you've been assured that they're cool people and whatnot, you don't know how raw and real you can be. So, but it's been very comforting knowing that Dave and AC and now Britt have been able to accept us for how we were on our show, and they've felt comfortable being as honest, real, and original as they are.
Yeah, you said it, Brett, and perhaps I should give you and Andy, who's not with us tonight, a pat on the back because Britt, you guys have still never met face to face, and I knew her beforehand, and so I kind of said, this kind of thing just took off organically. It was, again, me showing you guys the paper. Andy says, let's get her on. But it's very tough when you don't know the person. We've also had Matt Arguin on the show, who I have a lot of history with from my childhood. You have met him personally, but Andy hadn't met him personally. So again, you have that awkwardness of, I don't know this person. I don't know what they're like. You're taking our word for it when we say, no, this person's gonna be a great guest. But again, because we're not even in the same room as we continue to record these latest episodes of the podcast, that you can't read off of the social interaction of being face-to-face with the person, as we just sort of record by audio. So, you can't tell, you can't read facial expressions and sort of tell if you've pushed it too far or made an inappropriate reference or joke, or it's been a bit of a challenge. So good on you for doing it.
Well, and I mean, you just referenced Matt Arguin there, and I know we're probably getting close to our 40 minutes, but I just wanted to point out that after we had Matt on, I've been leaning on him an awful lot in the last 60 days, just because of who he is. He's a man of faith, and I mean, I was born and raised in a Brethren household, and it's just even I have questions still almost daily about not necessarily my faith, but just how if I see something or if I experience something. And I mean, like I said, I've leaned on Matt a number of times in the last 60 days, where he's been a great resource, and he's no nonsense, but he's certainly been an awful lot of help in trying to put things into perspective, where not only do I understand, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, regardless of, the faith background that you come from, these are crazy times. And the more we can cling to, almost the better. Whatever's bringing you hope. Andy, myself, and you are all men of faith. And Andy has been instrumental. Andy and his family have been instrumental in my journey with God and some of the faith that I try and model in my own life. And we wrestle with these big questions. And so whatever it is that's bringing you hope, we certainly hope that that you're clinging to it and asking those questions and wrestling with those, important things. Matt's a great guy. And I mean, I knew Matt as early as 6 years old. And so I know him more as Matt than certainly as Father Matt as he is now, as Brett was saying, a man of God. But probably one of my favorite episodes of the 40 that we have done was having him on to talk about his kind of journey and what he's been through, because and that was probably on me to set that one up the most in terms of getting him on the show, because I was like, I want to know what work looks like for you. What kind of challenges you face as a man in ministry using a wheelchair. You're not standing at a pulpit to preach. So what, little things like that, what's that look like for you? Do people take you seriously enough? Are they offering to pray for you? We had those chats too. So Matt's just a great guy. And shout out to Matt for coming in and taping an episode. And we've got a lot of big things still planned here. We're all, in this together, and a lot of big things planned, but certainly appreciate everybody following us in this journey. And if you haven't been following us and you want to, you can find every episode of the Team Ability No Excuses podcast on any major podcasting device of your choice. You just got to listen to my voice and Andy's voice and Brett's voice. And we're better to listen to than we are to look at. And that's probably a fact.
Sorry, not sorry, internet.
I love it. I love it. Thanks, Brett, man. I love you very much. And I appreciate you taking some time out of your evening to stare at your computer screen and indirectly stare at the entire internet at the same time. It's a terrifying thing.
Bro, it's always a pleasure. I love you to death. Your family means more to me than I could ever convey. And I look forward to what the next couple of days, weeks, months has in store for us. So.
I want to shout out to Andy, who's not with us. It's been nice to, be the one that's been on camera this week, because I don't get thrown under the bus by Andy, at least this week, because, it seems to happen a lot. Andy's been throwing a lot of shade at me for a lot of years. And it's such a brotherhood I have with that guy too. So we missed you, Andy. And the next one we got to do the three of us for sure.
Andy, we love you, but the Steelers still suck.
That's a great way to close it off. On behalf of Brett Wills, I'm saying good night. You guys can check out episode 40 is now live on any major podcasting device of your choice. And the episode with Britt Myers is coming very, very soon. Thanks to Britt and all of our guests. And thank you, Brett Wills, you wonderful, wonderful human.